Yo guys, welcome back. Today we've got some wild stories straight from the internet, the kind that make you go, wait, did that really happen? You're gonna love this. Stick around because I want to know your take on these. Smash that subscribe button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's get the conversation rolling. Also, before I talk about the real crux of the matter, I want to make it clear that I'm not in any way thinking of leaving my wife over my current feelings. I'm just in a confused and hurt place. I also do not know what I need in terms of advice or support. I think I'm really just trying to see if anyone else goes through these feelings after so long. Also, before I share, I want to make it clear I do not suspect her to have done it again. I have no reason to doubt she's currently faithful. In fact, if she's not, I would be so shocked. In part, as far as I can tell, there is a zero opportunity, even if I thought she wanted to. She has done nothing new to hurt me, yet I'm feeling very hurt today. My wife and I met in 2006, moved in together the same year, married in 2010. She had an affair that started in January of 2015 and ended roughly February of 2016. She ended it on her own. I found out on April 3rd of 2016 purely by mistake. She had left her laptop on when she left for work, open to FB Messenger, where she was talking to someone about it. Needless to say, I was crushed. We both worked for the same company, and her AP was also an employee there. I worked out of our main office, while my wife worked at an off-site location, and her AP worked roughly half his time at the office and split his time off-site. One thing that I also want to mention is that he pursued my wife for well over a year. He knew she was married and knew I was her husband. Wife reported him multiple times to HR for sexual harassment, as his advances were unwanted. HR reported, and as I was in management, I got to see these reports, that there was no clear evidence and slash or witnesses, so this came down to her word against his, and they felt he was more believable. His advances got insane. In the months prior to the affair, she told me once he was twisting her words and said that if her only excuse for not doing it was that she was married, that in her heart she must want it too. When I found out, my wife was able to pinpoint the exact start of the affair to a confusing week. It was a week that in our extended family there was a tragedy, and all us adults took off work for a week, and we all pulled the kids out of school for a week, and all rallied together to support each other. She said she slipped away at one point, and that's when it started. I have run that whole week through my head so many times, and I cannot think of a single moment she wasn't with us. She and I pretty much were with all the kids most of that week, or with her brother and all the kids. How she managed to slip away and back is well beyond my scope. I guess it shows how people who really want to will get away with it. Anyway, like I said above, she ended it on her own well before I found out about it. In the aftermath of D-Day, I went through her laptop. I don't know what I think would be helpful to find. Roughly the week of Valentine's Day, she made multiple searches of varying wording of how to have sex with a small penis, including one search that specified 3-inch penis. I also discovered she had run a background check on the guy Weird Right, then some really childish searches of her sign and his sign, etc. D-Day resulted in a long conversation. She admitted to it. She made many excuses, and I'm not going to list them here as it's really not important. She then told me if I wanted a divorce she would understand. I stated I did not. She then said that she didn't want me to stay if it was only for our son. She said she would rather co-parent as a separated couple if I was going to be resentful and slash or hateful with her while under one roof. I told her I still loved her, that I was just hurt and confused by her actions. I ended up taking a full week off of work. When I returned, I shared with my office mate what had happened, and she went and confronted wife's AP. I had no clue, but my office mate had also slept with him. He blew up over me talking about it. He started texting my wife, calling her all kinds of names, telling her she was stupid, and really treating her like shit. He then told her she screwed up royally. He proceeded to tell me their sex life had never been any of my business in the first place, that they were two consenting adults, and I had no business knowing about it. He then texted her again and told her if I kicked her out not to come running, as he had no intention of letting her move in. Great guy, right? Not that it matters all about the conversation, but office mate confided in me that the Google search I found in wife's laptop about small penis was not only accurate but an understatement. She claims he was so small she couldn't feel if it was even in. Doesn't make anything any better at all. Maybe even makes it worse to know my wife was getting apparently bad sex and still keeping that up behind my back. Also, I don't think it's important, but I would like to mention the AP started to try intimidation tactics at work. He would park next to me. We worked on different floors, but he would come to my floor and just pace back and forth in front of my office. One day our office assistant was out sick, and I was sitting at her desk to answer phones, and he came and sat in a chair in front of the desk and would not move. My direct supervisor went to the AP supervisor and said AP was not to be on our floor again, and if their department had business on my floor, that another staff would need to conduct said business. Also, in the aftermath of D-Day, my wife's entire family turned their back on her. Each adult sibling, plus her parents, told her that if I kicked her out, they would not provide her a place to stay, nor would any help her out financially if she was stuck without me. Between her AP telling her to stay away and her family turning their backs, I think she learned very much that her choices may have consequences she hadn't thought of. In the meantime, her parents told me they respected me very much and would be there for anything I needed. Anyway, I'm rambling. I told you all above that D-Day we had a long talk, and she offered that if I wanted a divorce she would understand. She even went so far as to say she wouldn't contest anything and would make the process easy on me. I knew I didn't want that. I think the fact that I saw my parents separate then divorce, and neither was happy, just kind of showed me one side of things. I didn't want that for me. I still loved her. I was just upset with the circumstances. I knew she couldn't undo what she did, but I trusted that things could get better. One thing that helped me out that day was that she had ended it on her own. I think if it was still going on when I found out, that maybe I would have needed to do more thinking. But the fact that she felt bad enough to end it on her own made me comfortable that there was still a future for us. I hurt Sue much though, and I was so confused. I couldn't understand why I wasn't enough. I was even more confused at who she ended up with. The same guy she filed multiple complaints against at work. It made no sense. Oh, also in the aftermath, wife was already unpopular with the girls in her department, but after that, they painted her like the company WH. She ended up leaving our company for another job to get away from the office gossip. The past 8, getting closer to 9 years since I found out, have been without hiccup. She has given me no reason to suspect anything is wrong. In fact, I feel that at the moment, if anything, we are closer than we've been in most of our relationship. I work overnight, so we don't sleep together at night. But since May, she has been out of work on a workers' comp injury, so she's home all the time. Meaning that currently we get to have lunch together every day. I come home and take a nap, and when I wake up, she's there. We talk, we do our errands together, I drive her to and from her appointments. It's great, we've always enjoyed each other's company, but the past several months we've been able to spend more quality time together than at any other point in our relationship. And I have really enjoyed this. I don't like that she's injured. She had to have back surgery and now she moves slow. When we do grocery shopping, she can't always lift everything such as milk. She relies more on me. However, the past month since she's been home feels almost like we got a fresh start with each other. If that makes sense. However, feelings have been coming back, and this started about 2 months ago. I saw a post on Ask Reddit where someone who had been cheated on asked was reconciliation possible. I responded with how my wife and I were 8 years since D-Day and going strong. I also added that it wasn't easy. As to be expected from Reddit, I got jumped on by trolls. I had one guy tell me, "Too bad you like being cheated on." Multiple people told me I just had not caught her yet and that she's obviously still at it. I had multiple people tell me it's not too late to divorce her over it. Not one of those people are in my shoes and can evaluate what goes on in my relationship, but somehow these hurtful things from strangers have started to chip away at my feelings. I know it shouldn't. But now, a few months after this interaction, I am left feeling all those feelings of hurt and confusion all over again. 8 years later, and she's done nothing in that time to make me distrust her. Yet I'm once again asking myself why she ever did it in the first place. I'm feeling heartache over it again. I feel like D-Day all over again. I'm back to that confusion and just not understanding her choice. I knew 8 years ago I would never forget this, but I honestly thought I was through questioning it a long time ago. Should I talk to her about my feelings? I feel like she's going to feel attacked if I bring this up again now after 8 years. 8 years. She's done nothing to make me distrust her, so what can be gained by bringing it up? But I feel like if I don't talk to her, it's going to just eat at me. I'm so torn. Is this at all normal? Has anyone else gone through similar feelings after so many years? TLDR wife had an affair that lasted roughly a year. She ended it on her own before I found out. D-Day was over 8 years ago. We reconciled. I have no regrets over reconciliation. Feelings of hurt and confusion are back just as strong as D-Day was. I have zero feelings that she has done anything wrong. First, I want to thank everyone who took the time to respond to me. My main account is like 10 years old, and I have quite literally never had this many comments to a post I made, so this was a little overwhelming. I made this post close to the end of my work shift, and I intended to go home, go to sleep, and hope to see a handful of comments upon waking. Wow, was I surprised. Thank you, the vast majority of you helped. A few didn't, but that's okay too. Also, not only the quantity, but the quality of the comments was amazing. After lunch, I sat and answered as many of you as I could until my phone battery died on me. Those of you I did not get to, I'll be responding to most of you shortly. I'm back at work, where I spend most of my waking hours. A few bullet points for you all. First, a few of you mentioned my dates looked off. Sorry, I mistyped D-Day. I have now edited it. It originally read 2015 when it was 2016. Affair lasted from January 2015 to just after Valentine's Day 2016. I discovered it on April 3rd of 2016, roughly 6 weeks after it ended. A few of you asked how I know for a fact she ended it and not the other way around. After D-Day, I snooped her laptop, really a shared device, but she owned it. We both equally used it though. On it, she still had a FB message chain between her and AP, dated from a month prior to D-Day. In it, he was begging her to reconsider, and she was telling him she regretted the affair, and no. Following her no, he made a really weird comment that, remember, fucking you was a favor to you, not the other way around. In the days after D-Day, when he was pissed that I found out, he would text that same message to her a few times. A few asked that since I work overnight, how do I know I can trust her? As I stated, she currently has zero opportunity to cheat, and that looks like an open opportunity. Well, for starters, we have a doorbell camera. This is not why I bought it. We had a porch pirate incident prior to the camera, hence, now we have a camera. Anyone coming or going in the middle of the night, I would know. Only way she could do it currently while I'm at work would be to climb out a window. With her back surgery, she can't do this, and I highly doubt she could get desperate enough to make a guy do that. In addition, she doesn't like to have sex with me while our son is in the house. She's paranoid he'll hear us and slash or walk in on us. Even when I'm not at work, she refuses sex during the night time and wants it after our son has left for school. Several people mentioned therapy. I am a sexual abuse survivor, and my early attempts at therapy in my 20s caused more trauma than good, so I was afraid of therapy. After D-Day, my wife found me a therapist that specializes in men who are survivors of childhood sexual trauma. Talk about specific. This therapist also helped me work through the feelings from the affair, as she stated, and I had not thought of this at first, that an affair is an additional form of sexual abuse. So I worked through my feelings from the affair in therapy myself. Wife did not believe therapy would benefit her, nor did we try marriage counseling. Truthfully, the only people I know in real life who have done marriage therapy have all split up after, so that kind of scares me away. I do realize it must work for some, or it wouldn't exist. I believe those are the major points that were brought up by more than one person. If I notice any more patterns as I continue to read comments, I will edit farther. Story 2. In my second story about my parents, I mentioned my ex-wife and her affair. I won't use her real name here, but Amy will do. I met Amy in the late 90s. She was 3 years older than me and a local bartender. She was tall, had straight red hair, wore glasses, and had a flirty yet blunt personality. She was just my type, or so I thought. We connected over time with me talking about my issues with my parents while drunk. She even drove me home a few times. In 1999, we were officially dating. And in 2000, she moved in with me after I inherited my late uncle's house. And in late 2001, we had a surprise pregnancy. So we rushed to get married in early 2002 before she had the baby. My father certainly acted like his usual self at my wedding. He jokingly flirted with Amy and then told me she was too good for me, and also repeatedly said she looked like my mother when she was young, and even called me a mama's boy who was just marrying a clone of his own mother. He got me to crack, and I told him that the only thing Amy and my mother had in common was that they both wore glasses. And my mother was a total hippie back in the day. Amy was not. I then realized I was making a scene, and my father was totally smug about it. I walked away and tried to avoid him for the rest of the reception, but he kept showing up to make jabs at me, and only stopped when I reminded him of one of the things he hated anyone bringing up, and he immediately went into DARVO mode. I told him I'd shut up about it if he stopped pestering me. He just fumed for a moment, then walked away to have a drink. He went heavy on the wine that day. Amy and I could not afford an expensive wedding or honeymoon, especially with a baby incoming. So we had to just make it a few quiet, stress-free days at a rented cabin by a lake. But those few days we spent out there were magical. Despite Amy's later betrayals, I still remember that honeymoon fondly. Of course, the marriage was all downhill from there. Amy started to show her true colors when I refused to put her on the deed to my house. She guilted and pestered me about it for months, but I didn't give in. The house was my safety net, and Amy acted like I didn't trust her. Problem for her was that my brain can go into apathy mode if you try to guilt me too much. If I stopped arguing and just didn't engage or act emotionless, she'd know she went too far and nothing would get through to me then. She eventually gave up on getting her name on the house deed, but for years said I was being a colossal jerk for not giving her what she wanted/deserved. She openly lied/exaggerated about it many times to make me look bad, especially to her friends. I got used to telling people that I really didn't have to make excuses to them, and if they wanted to make trouble, do it away from me. I ended up throwing several of Amy's friends out of my house because they kept antagonizing me. Amy would also let her friends borrow/take my stuff without asking. I had a lot of movies, CDs, tools, video games, and stuff like that go missing. And when I found out Amy let her friends take my things, she'd call them our stuff. And if I reminded her I paid for said stuff, she'd tell me I was holding it over her head that I made more money than her. And then would play the victim by acting super dumb and saying I believed she was stupid. Well, as I guess you'll know by reading all this, stupid is as stupid does. I only got about half the things she lent out back. The final straw on her lending out my stuff was in 2005 when Amy lent out a gun I own. Due to my very narcissistic parents and the fact I was living in a trailer during the 90s, I wanted a pistol for personal protection. It was just a .22 revolver. Still have it, and it still works great. I kept the pistol and its ammo locked away in a safe where the kids could not get at it. And one day when I opened the safe to get my checkbook, the pistol was gone. Only Amy had the code other than me. She literally loaned it to a friend of a friend at least a week prior and never asked for it back. This person was someone she barely knew. I told her to get it back ASAP or I'd report it stolen. We had a fight and she tried to say I couldn't do that. But I said if my gun was used in a crime, she was the one who loaned it out, which would make her responsible. She cried and got her friend on the phone. The pistol was back in my hands by the end of the day, and the guy who had it called it a weenie gun because it was just a .22. He also didn't return any of the ammo because he'd apparently used it all up. I changed the code to the safe and Amy had a meltdown about it. I started keeping all my important stuff locked up where even she couldn't get to it. Her friends eventually stopped coming over anyway. During Amy's second pregnancy, she became more demanding and freaked out about the smallest things. I chalked it up to pregnancy hormones, but she got even more toxic after having the baby, and I thought it was PPD. But no, that was actually her real self. Our entire 7-year marriage was pulling off layers of the rotten onion that was Amy, little by little, until I finally got to her core. Her parents confessed to me that she was a very troubled teen that drank, smoked, and other things kids aren't supposed to do. She was found passed out on their porch one morning, so they rushed her into therapy and made her detox. They said that after the therapy, she just seemingly became completely normal, got a good job, and became a functioning adult, and they loved that she married me. Amy's parents are still in my life, and I honestly feel like they're the parents I should have had. Eventually, Amy decided to have an affair, and it wasn't hard to figure out by then. She'd taken to being blatantly awful around the house when not at work, drank booze like a fish, and even tried to smoke indoors. I ripped the cigarette from her mouth and told her to go outside and do that. She looked at me like I smelled of stale farts and smoked outside. She tried again a few more times, and each time ended the same way. I even brought up how bad the dangers of second-hand smoke were and asked if she even cared about our children. She told me that was emotional blackmail, even though she'd tried the same sort of thing on me many times. In the end, she stopped trying to smoke in the house, but her affair started around the same time. I think she realized I was not the pushover she wanted me to be, so she stepped out. Since this was the late 2000s, smartphones were not as common. I hear so many stories of cheating spouses being so guarded of their phones these days. But back then, she and I only had basic clamshell phones or flip phones. I'm not sure which term is more correct, but Amy started acting even worse. She started dressing like a teenager and was talking like one too. She started treating me more like I was her dad than her husband, and she was going out for periods and not telling me where she was going. She also started bringing home new clothes and pricey items from the mall, all name brand stuff that was far from cheap, yet she didn't have the savings to buy all that. She was still a bartender and she wasn't exactly frugal. I smelled a rat and started following her around with the help of friends. Collectively, we got lots of evidence of her affair, and I had some of the pictures printed out. I called her into the dining room under the guise of a family meeting and presented her the evidence. She was completely remorseless about the affair and even pointed out the guy was younger than me and a motorcycle mechanic. And he made her see her real worth. I told her I was divorcing her then and taking the kids. She did not seem to care in the slightest, and told me she'd take me for everything in court. And like a bratty child, said she wouldn't have a hard time making me look guilty because men are all just that way. Then she packed up to leave. I had 2 hidden digital cameras in the room that recorded the entire interaction from 2 angles. And once I had the footage, I called my in-laws over to see it. They were furious with Amy and agreed to support me 100% in the upcoming divorce. Unfortunately, my state has no-fault divorce, so I couldn't make Amy lose all just because of her affair. But the judge still saw how evil she was because of her attempts at defamation since I provided the camera recordings and all of the affair evidence. Amy was pissed I'd recorded her and tried to claim she wasn't aware she was being recorded and it shouldn't be valid. But she was overruled because they were cameras in my own home. Amy had wanted to take my house, but her name was never on it, and I owned it since before marriage. It also came out during the divorce Amy had racked up tens of thousands in credit card debt in my name by signing up for more cards without my knowledge. All that money went into her spending sprees and her affair partner, and she expected me to pay it all off for her. But when my lawyer made it clear in front of the judge that she'd committed fraud by signing my name along with her own, and an investigation would possibly lead to jail time if pursued. In the end, Amy took most of those credit card debts we could prove were hers, and she got a lump sum of half my retirement savings instead of alimony. Of course, most of that sum went into paying off her debts anyway. I also got full custody of the kids, and she hated that meant I got child support from her. My kids also figured out their mother was evil, even though they were so young, so they wanted nothing to do with her. Amy said the kids were just like me anyway, which was why she didn't want them. Amy did not make getting her owed monthly child support easy. Even though she was only paying the minimum, she really had no excuse for not wanting to pay, so she just acted pissy whenever called out on it. She and her new lover, the motorcycle mechanic guy, left town together, and Amy has not been back since. I still had means of contacting her when her child support was late, but I had no plans to speak to her for any other reason. Her parents also disowned her and stopped talking to her completely. She tried for a couple of years to get them to talk to her, but they always refused. They've been NC with Amy for about 14 years now. They're awesome grandparents to my kids though. And even though my kids are adults now, we all still take the time to meet up as a family. Amy did call me a few times to tell me to tell my mother to stop pestering her because I refused to let my parents near my kids in the 2010s. My kids told me they wanted nothing to do with my parents anyway, and my parents ending up in a care home only made it harder for them to try and see us. They couldn't just drop in without warning anymore. So my mother pestered Amy to try and make me get my kids to see her. Amy could care less and said it wasn't her problem. And once both my kids were 18 and child support ended, Amy cut contact with us completely.